Now call to order the Wytheville Town Council meeting, Monday, August 28th, 2023 at 5 p.m. We do have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Candace Johnson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next I need approval of the agenda. I would need a motion.
I so move that we approve tonight's agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I hear none. This will be a roll call vote. We'll start with you, Councilwoman Johnson.
Johnson, aye. Atkins, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Patterson, aye.
Gilman, aye.
The motion passes. If necessary, we can have a recess at a later date in the meeting. Next is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 14, 2023. I would like a motion to accept as presented or somehow amended.
Move that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 14th.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? All right. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next is a presentation by Parks and Recreation Director Josh Sherritt regarding travel ball tournaments.
Good afternoon.
Sherritt, will you remind us why we're having this?
Good afternoon, Council. I believe the reason I'm here is because there have been numerous conversations over the past years of discussion of encouraging or the development of a travel sports complex. And what I'm here today is just to provide a little bit of information, some budgetary numbers, things like that for consideration, so you're aware of what comes with the development of or the establishment of a process that would allow for the hosting or development of a travel sports complex. Okay. So I thought it was very important to start off this with council understanding what facilities we have and how we are able to utilize those current facilities and what population that serves within our youth athletics and adult athletics program. So, all right.
Just click your mouse. Do you see the resume up there on the top?
Oh, resume. Gotcha. Thank you. Sorry, it's still not moving forward. I apologize. Thought I did that. Still. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. All right. So the current inventory of facilities for primarily athletic facilities that we have in the town of Wytheville, we have our current baseball and softball fields, but those are owned by the Wytheville Community College organization, but they're maintained by Parks and Recreation. So we don't actually own those fields. Those consist of 3 baseball/softball fields and 1 multi-purpose field. So basically, if you're at WCC, anything within the fence, we maintain. We maintain that. We also have our T-ball fields that consist of 2 small fields for that purpose and pitching machine, as well as we utilize the Scott Memorial Middle School field. That field is owned by Wythe County Schools, but everything inside of the fence is, again, maintained by Parks and Recreation. And then I did add Ager Field on here. There are 2 baseball/softball fields that are owned by Wythe County, or Wythe County Parks and Recreation, but they're utilized by both the county and the town throughout the year, depending on the various sport and various seasons. So our current facility, so again, we go in a little bit more detail on the WCC ball fields. We host all of our Scott Memorial Middle School baseball and softball games. So it's approximately 24 games and daily practices February through May. That's annual. Host all of our pre-K through third grade soccer clinics, games, and daily practices February through May. And host all of our Parks and Rec third through seventh grade baseball and softball games and daily practices April through July. It also serves as a practice facility for all of our Parks and Rec youth football and flag football practices August through October. And then it's a host to various other community events, including vintage baseball and then also the Lions Club Carnival. The challenges within that facility is it's one owned by Wytheville Community College. The other issue we have is parking. It's not the largest parking for a travel setup. And then it also has a lack of infrastructure, including water, sewer, and lighting. One of the things that you'll find that are very important when it comes to travel ball facilities is lighting. And then also that of a permanent restroom facility that can provide both water and sewer. Our T-ball fields, they host all of our T-ball and pitching machine games, daily practices March through June, and host all of our football and most of our football and cheerleading practices August through October. Again, the challenges with this facility is it's built for that specific purpose. It is landlocked, so there's no ability to expand the park area itself. Another issue we have is parking in that space. We don't have ample parking at that space. And then there's also, again, a lack of infrastructure, including water, sewer, lighting, and a permanent restroom facility. Our current facilities at Scott Memorial Middle School that host all of our football and cheerleading practices and weekday games August through October. Hosts our flag football clinic August through October. It hosts all 5th through 7th grade soccer games and practices February through May, and it also the host to all Scott Memorial Middle School games and daily practices February through May. Again, the challenge associated with that is it is owned by the Wythe County School Board. Another issue is parking. If you've ever been there on a Saturday or on a Tuesday night game, you're parking on the hill and everything. It's not the greatest setup as far as parking is concerned. And then again, there's also the lack of infrastructure, including a designated water, sewer, and restroom facilities. So with that in mind, I want to be able to share with you some local, what are local facilities that are used for travel ball or travel tournaments. So the closest one that you're probably aware of is Randolph Park. This has 4 regulation baseball and softball fields. It has a press box area. It also has a designated soccer and football field area. The unique thing about Randolph Park, it is also surrounded by their park that includes disc golf, pool, shelters, and a track, as well as some trails. It's a total of 87 acres. That facility was built in 2000. The initial build cost was $6 million, and that was set up through donations, fundraisers, and a trust set up in honor of Miss Randolph. Annual operations budget of $800,000. Now, I did reach out to Pulaski County to try and get a breakdown of what is specifically associated with the travel sports or the athletics program. The way their budget was set up, it was very difficult to pull out what was an entire park maintenance and what was just ball field maintenance. This requires a staff of 4 full-time and 9 part-time staff during peak operations. The newest that you're probably aware of is the Abingdon Sports Complex, the Meadows. This has 4 regulation baseball and softball fields, a press box, lighting, restrooms, bleachers. It's got 3 multi-purpose soccer and football fields that are also used for lacrosse on a regular basis. This property is total in 34 acres. It opened in 2022. The initial build cost for this was $12 million, and that was done through a contribution from Food City, First Bank and Trust, and then also the town of Abingdon. It has an annual operations budget of $770,000. It requires 2 full-time staff and 5 part-time staff during peak operations. And then the newest that is being built is a combination of 2 parks in Christiansburg. This is the Huckleberry Park and Kiwanis Park. This has 4 rectangular sports fields at the Huckleberry Park and 2 baseball and softball fields at Kiwanis Park. It has a press box, designated turf soccer fields. It's surrounded by a park that includes disc golf, splash pad, shelters, trails, and a dog park. It is a total of 63 acres. It's anticipated to open in 23 and 24. The initial build cost was anticipated to be at $18 million for Huckleberry Park, and it was $4 million for the completion of Kiwanis Park. And that was done through donations, bonds, general funds, and reserves and grants that they received. The most recent cost for the Huckleberry Park has gone up to $19 million, and a lot of that is because of their electrical infrastructure that was needed for that. It has an anticipated annual operations budget of $1.9 million for both Huckleberry and Kiwanis Park. And this will require 4 full-time and potentially up to, and again, they haven't opened yet, so this is what their anticipation is potentially 14 part-time staff during peak operations, and that's shared between the Huckleberry Park and Kiwanis Park. So I thought it was very important for you to understand, one, what we have, how we utilize it, the amount of people that are utilizing those fields on a regular basis, but then also the conversation leading into what kind of facility would be required on a regular basis, host travel ball tournaments, and then also there's some of the requirements associated with hosting a travel ball tournament. So some of the things for if a complex like this was to be built, or if we were wanting to invest into the programming to develop a park like this, the first thing we would need is land to build the project. So you're looking at least 40 plus acres. The question or the consideration with that would be somewhere that has close access to infrastructure, as well as what available property would we have of that size within town limits. I think that would be a very difficult thing to have. The cost associated with a project like this, we would be probably somewhere between $8 and $16 million, just depending on the size, the infrastructure, again, that we wanted to develop, if we had to purchase property for this, things like that. The other thing we'd want to consider is the tax revenue requirements to cover that cost. So if you're looking at $8 million with an 8% meals and lodging tax, you're looking at somewhere in close to $100 million in additional revenue that would be required just to cover that $8 million. So for $16 million, $200 million in additional tax revenue. That's in addition to what the town currently brings in. The other thing that we would need to consider for this is our staffing requirements. What kind of staff would we need for this? We would need designated ball field staff. We would need someone to schedule that. We would also need our continuing maintenance program associated with a facility of this size. The next thing we'd want to consider would be the economic impact. There was an interesting article that was released with an interview with downtown Abington business owners. And one of the general thoughts was, if you've been to the Meadows Sports Complex or been by that, you'll see that there's a hotel right beside it. There's a couple of fast food places beside that. And they'll tell you that, yes, on a weekend when those travel ball tournaments are going on, that Burger King and that Quality Inn, they are booming. However, that population is not trickling down into their downtown areas, so you're not seeing that revenue being spread across their local businesses there. The next thing is, what is required to host a travel tournament? With a travel tournament, the way that works is you have to be a sanctioned agency. Sanctioned agencies or accrediting agencies, there's USSSA, Top Gun, USA Baseball, and Softball. Right now, there are currently sanctioned providers in Grayson County, Marion, Abingdon, Dublin, Christiansburg. There's also an organization here in Wytheville and in Bluefield. So that means it would be very difficult for us to be able to obtain an accreditation from one of these three organizations that would allow us to host. However, that does mean that our facility, if we had a facility like this, it could be reserved or rented by one of these organizers to host that facility. However, what you'd be looking at as far as direct income associated with that would basically be a field rental. So you'd be looking at somewhere between $200 and $300 per field per day. So that's where that direct income would come from. The next thing you'd want to consider is our facility reservations. Booking requirements to cover the cost associated with this facility. You'd be looking, there's a prime season, about 30 weekends that you'd want to try and reserve this. So typically during the colder months, travel ball backs off. However, it's rolling right around again in February. So with that, we would be looking at every weekend, we would need to be booking this or the attempt to book this facility to cover these costs. My last question is, in something like this, if the town were to consider an opportunity like this, who will it serve? If we have a facility that we're investing, anywhere between $8 and $16 million in, a product like this, then emphasis would be placed on covering that debt service. How would we make that money back? The problem with that is then if you're looking at 30 weekends that you have a brand new immaculate facility like this booked out, that would deter our local rec teams from being able to use that facility. Because the emphasis would be on regaining or recouping that tax money. So my concern with that, if you are putting this, I have no objection to the development of new infrastructure. We do need more ball fields. That is a common thing that we are dealing with. But if it was being purchased for the opportunity to directly recoup some of this money, I would be worried that we would be alienating our current rec league teams and our current rec league program. But the purpose of this today was to provide a little bit more information on what we have, how we utilize it, but then also what would be some of the costs associated with the development or looking into the hosting of facilities like this within our current facilities or the development of a new facility. So I hope this provides you a little bit more insight on what that would take. Open to any questions that you may have.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment that, a citizen was standing at that podium and, addressing us about these ball fields.
Yes.
So you answered his questions and concerns and council's questions and concerns. And the council might have some questions.
Any other questions?
Have you talked to Dean Sprinkle about maybe combining Madison?
The problem is that area is still not large enough. We have 4 ball fields on there, but if you were going to go and attempt to put in the infrastructure, so lighting alone, you're looking at about $400,000 to $500,000 per field. And then you also we have water to the space. However, we need to have, if we were going to offer a facility like this with permanent restrooms, concessions, or anything like that, we'd have to have a way to get that water out. That's one of the problems. That's why there's no sewer put in that space there. That's why we use porta-johns and things like that for that. But you're still going to run into a situation where you don't have enough parking. If you're trying to regularly host these, we have one paved area with this overflow parking, you're going to see a situation like you typically see with the carnival, where the street or that road is blocked off 30 weekends a year. The other thing that we would have to consider in that is if we were going to invest millions of dollars into a facility like that, could you allow other community programs or community events, such as the carnival, things like that, to be on that? Because we typically spend somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a year just repairing some of the areas on the field from the carnival. So if we were to invest in that, would we allow a community organization to continue to use it in that way? So that would be something to consider with that. Any questions?
Mr. Sherritts, would that be considered like also adding a splash pad as well and also disc golf or
no, this would be just for sports infrastructure, just for sports infrastructure. Yes. Because even if we were to construct that on the area that we currently use with those 4 ball fields at the college, we would end up having to move those ball fields. We would have to move those out to make alleyways, seatings larger, area for that press box, for restrooms, concessions, all of those kind of things. So the current spacing of those ball fields wouldn't accommodate a facility like this.
And I don't know much about travel ball, but could you, and this is going to be probably just a dumb question, but can you do 2 fields versus 4, or you have to have,
not
have
really.
to have 4?
Really, if you're trying to make it attractive, so that would be the thing is if we were going to invest into this, you would need at least 4 fields.
At least
you would really want at least 4 fields because then you could play multiple games multiple times. If you have 2 ball fields, you would be limiting yourself to probably 4 to 6 team tournaments. Or if you have 4 ball fields, you could actually open that up to 10 to 12 team tournaments. Even a 4 field, if you look at some of the Top Gun tournaments that take place or some of the USSSA, they utilize for their 12U, they utilize Johnson City. For their 10U, they utilize Abingdon. For their 8U, they utilize Christiansburg, because there's not many areas in our location here that could accommodate, the large amount of teams that would fill that entire tournament. Probably one age bracket, but not the entire tournament.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Or concerns? Thank you very much.
Ron, how do I exit out of this properly?
Alt tab.
Alt tab?
Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at the all cap.
Oh, I'm sorry.
While they're doing that, we're coming up on citizens period, so I will remind you that once you come up to the podium, just to state your name, and then I'll remind you of the 5-minute mark. All right, so first person who has checked in that wishes to come for the council is Mr. Richard Johnson. So, sir, if you just, as I said, your name and
Good evening, everyone. Hey, my name's Richard Johnson. I live at 425 Loretta Drive, Wytheville, Virginia 24382. I graduated George Wythe High School. So anyway, that was just to break my ice a little bit. I am here today, and I'm just trying to get clarity on the Veterans Building. I'm a Veterans member, and I'm trying to see, what is the requirement? What is our obligation? What is the town's obligation? Due to there was federal grants that was given to the Civic Center, which we call the Rec Center. And I think the federal grant was given like 65. The veterans, the Legions, and the VFW, they gave 16. The town gave maybe 8. And then the Lions Club gave maybe 6, and et cetera down. And some of the verbiage in it states that the veterans will, I think the understanding is that we would have a space there to reside, to have our meetings. And it seems, since I've been there, it seems like they pushing us back, for instance, like looking at on the agreement that Mayor Scott and the judge, some of the orders that they have and some of the old verbiage, and I hope y'all have some of those documents, because the ones we have is not real clear. But we used to have all the green spot, and I didn't make no copies, but all the green spot. But it seems like for some reason the town is trying to just push us in the red spot, and which, and I don't understand that, based off, if it's supposed to be a community center. Also, the building, the way the building, the upkeeping of the building, it's not in the great shape. And it seems like it's not, no one really taking care of that. And it's just like we going in there, the building looks really kind of bad, So I'm trying to figure out, what is the reason why we have to do a lease, based off the understanding that the funds that we gave, our memorial funds out of trustees, we gave a lot of money to help build that building. Why are we signing a lease? Based off, it says, I think clearly that we would have a space in that part, and I'd like to know that. And also, and I already talked about the safe part, because we got pictures where only reason they started working on it, I mean, the whole roof and stuff was all tore up. And then I think when the Chautauqua came and stuff like that, they started trying to work on it and stuff like that. But it wasn't really an idea to work on it until, other entities or vendors was coming in. So going back to my questions, I'd like to know some of those answers. I know Commander Maylene, she tried to talk with one of the managers here. I don't remember who it was or what.
We probably met with Maylene 6 times.
Yeah, Commander Maylene. Okay, yeah. So no, that's not that. No, that isn't. Okay, I don't know. So she's not on. I don't know. But she says she's only met 3, and then 2 of those times, I think whoever the person was, they had a schedule, but they wasn't able to meet with her, So they've been trying to get, I think maybe the secretary to keep giving us this lease to try to sign. So I'm concerned about the building. What is it for us in it? Is it just something that we gave and then, the town, I know the town owns the building. I know that, but I'm just trying to figure out, are we getting pushed out? Because I know they only signed, from my understanding, they tried to sign the lease maybe in 2009 because there was wind in that time period that they was trying to sell it. And then one of the members, mention no names, got kind of nervous about it, didn't want to lose it. So that's why they started the lease in 2009. And then after that, the lease is gone. So it kind of goes back to the old verbiage, So I'm just trying to get clarity, because I know it's a federal grant. And I'll be honest, what I recommend to the commander was, since the federal grant involved in it, then, maybe we need to take it maybe to a federal court if that's what's going on. So we're just trying to get clarity. And I just hoping that we can get that. And I think that's about my 5 minutes. And I'm more than glad to open up for discussion if you can, but definitely get Commander involved. She's out of town now. She couldn't be here today. And that's what I had to bring to the thing. And I do have paperwork, and I think I'll let her present it to you. But it does say that federal grant was given 65%. The Wytheville Recreation Commission gave 8%. The Veterans of Foreign Wars and the Legions gave 16%. Interest earned out of that is a different area. The Lions Club gave 3%, and in kinds of costs of the town, it was 6%. So I just hope y'all not trying to boot us out. I hope y'all going to take care of us, et cetera. And that's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And we're not trying to boot you out, and Mr. Freeman can answer some of those
Yes, I'm
questions
going
for
to do
you.
my very best. So we have met with Ms. Watson.
You want me to stand here or sit down, or does it
Your
matter?
choice, sir.
Okay, I stand.
We've met with Ms. Watson. We've met with VFW and American Legion on multiple occasions. We've been meeting with them since back in the spring. There's absolutely zero effort to push out either organization. In fact, the lease solidifies you all. The current agreement, I understand, sir. I'm very
Okay, I'm just saying, it's contradicting what you said. Go ahead.
The room that you're referring to is the large assembly room that currently is really, as we understand it from the many meetings we've had with them, was primarily being used for birthday party rentals on the weekend. That, I don't want to get too far into that, but the only other reason that we understood that they needed that space was to dry out flags and to occasionally host a regional meeting. So the classroom is what we call it, where the Legion and the VFW are already set up. That stays VFW, American Legion, all the time, 365 days a year. The only time we've asked for the assembly room back was for the Kids Interest program during the summer months. That's essentially a child care service that we provide at the new rec center now, that we end up taking the kids to the McLean Pool quite often, to the parks and different things. And so that's the only time of the year that the town would occupy that space. The other things we've done is taken their rent from $200 a month to $0, because they said they lost their revenue mechanism when bingo went away due to COVID. So we said, we'll charge you a nickel. I think the meetings have been going quite well, but each time after we meet, it circles back to us that we're trying to push them out. So I don't know where the communication problem is, but certainly I would not advocate that we push out the veterans. You all have been there since the day the facility opened, and all the things you read off are true. The VFW, American Legion, and other groups were contributors to that. And as far as I'm concerned, should be there forever. All we're asking for is to better utilize that underutilized assembly room, the large room, for the kids' interest. And then we've reduced the rent to $0. I've also indicated to them that if you ever had a regional event that was larger than you could accommodate, to let me know, and we could put you in the rec center, the meeting center, the heritage center. We'll accommodate a meeting anytime you all need it. So I think we're in, and I would welcome you to come anytime that group comes. We've met with Aubrey Whitlow multiple times. We've met with Amy Watson multiple times. I'm going to forget their names, but there's been a Jim Sayers multiple times. I've met with other members that have just come as individuals, so I'm not sure why that communication is not making it back to the membership, but certainly there's no issue.
But that's good to hear. And like I said, maybe the next meeting we can all sit down to get some clarity and make sure. And I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Freeman, if you would, can you please notify me of the next meeting? I would like to attend that meeting.
And I think Ms. Atkins came to the last one and would be happy to notify you.
Okay, I would like to attend the
Sure.
next meeting, please.
And I did attend, and I did, Mr. Johnson, I appreciate you speaking. I did go down, Ms. Watson did talk to me about the bathrooms and also the construction that was going on. I did go down there and meet with her that night along with Mr. Kern and talk to Mr. Freeman. And I do know that, thank goodness that was, and I want to thank the Public Works, whoever did work on that, as well as Mr. Freeman, of getting that cleared up before Chautauqua. The bathrooms, I do have to admit, I didn't see them after, but they did need some major assistance. And from what I understand, the mayor requested them to be closed, from my understanding. So
And the current arrangement, the current lease agreement puts the maintenance of the facility on those two groups.
I just wanted to clarify that, Public Works did help at least get that. And I
Certainly.
appreciate that.
Excuse me, you said, sir, that
The 2010 agreement says that the maintenance, the 2009, 2010 timeframe, I'm not sure exactly.
talking about the lease that you talking about the lease one that
The one that expired in January, the one that was expired in January.
So I'm going to move forward, if that's all right. And next on the list is Ms. Walters. Want to speak?
Yes. I'm Renee Walters, and I live on 305 Spring Meadow Drive. And I'm in here over the mowing of the town. I don't know what has changed, but the mowing is not getting done by the town. On one of these streets, and I'm going to show you the street that the town has come and mowed, and I've called several times about mowing. Now they mowed this. What do y'all think about this mow?
You reference the streets?
It's Washington Street, South 22nd, Washington Street.
Section area of Washington and South.
Yeah. Now would you call that mowing?
It's pretty.
Yeah.
So is that private property or is that town property? Or?
Town property. They mowed it. They have mowed it for 2 years and made it look good. And this year, I've had to call and call. And this is the last thing they did. They brought a big old farm tractor in there and mowed that. This is after they mowed. Did anything change on the mowing laws, ordinance in the town of Wytheville?
Well, we wouldn't be subject to that, so no, but no.
Our ordinance changed during the spring, but that wouldn't have changed the responsibility of public works to maintain right of ways. It has been an unusually wet summer. Usually things dry out a little bit more in July, and I know that they have struggled to keep up. It was a willful attempt to neglect that part of town. It's just
I've called and called. And the last time I called, Chris never did return my call about it. So is this the way it's going to look all the time or not?
Certainly don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I'm sure that administration will,
Can we
talk with Chris. talk
Yeah, I'll
about
check
Chris,
into
and, I'm not saying, I'm not giving excuses, but, equipment, personnel, wet weather, and that's all they're out there all the time doing it, but they just they can't get to everything all the time, and I apologize.
Yeah, but I go around town, and most of the town really does look good. I have to say that looks nice, but like I said, some of these back streets are bad.
But we did change our ordinance, right? Because that was my little bit concern, a little bit not being mowed like it should before in the past. And that was my concern about changing the ordinance, that even though if our town gentlemen and women could not get to it, because I think we used to like hire out a company. And that was my concern, because I've had concerns over mowing. There's, a couple now that it's like, so I don't know if maybe we need to relook at that and maybe
Is this a private lot? I'm just not following how the ordinance would apply to mowing of right of ways.
It's at this, it's at a right of way, and it's, like I said,
Corner of Washington and South 22nd.
yeah,
We will look into it. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. I appreciate
We
all of
appreciate
you.
you. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, and give me Mr. Stanley Patel. Can I chop that up?
I'm gonna speak. We're talking about the same.
Okay, all right. It was just going in order. So this is just state your name.
Sure. My name's Nick Patel. I'm at 165 Mainland Drive, Wytheville, Virginia, representing the Holiday Inn Express and Suites. The reason I came on today was there's a proposal for a possible lodging tax increase. I am against it, as well as the multiple hotel owners that I represent. We don't want to see that go up. We get enough praising from the tourists that come through Wytheville that, the hell, 13.5% tax. Hey, it is what it is. But I understand that you do need money. But however, the 8% is fair. It's gone from 4 to 6 to 7 to 8. All right. The first time it was raised, 2% was supposed to be to pay for debt service for the meeting center or community center, to my understanding. So by my math terminology, that means from 4 to 6, 33.3% of that revenue collected should have been set aside for debt service collection only, by my account, if it went from 4 to 6, and that's what that additional 2% was for. So needless to say, hotel revenues, my family has developed multiple hotels here in town, and hotel revenues have increased. You saw the effects during COVID when lodging goes down. You do lose that a little bit. But 2021, 2022, 2023, the town, I'm sure you have all seen it, hotel revenues have been through the roof. And you more than recouped what you lost during the year of COVID. So going up another 1%, we're just adding to the coffers. If there's a big amount of cash in the reserve, which I'm sure there is, look at the P&Ls, pull in some of the banks. We got 19 banks in town. Pull in their CEOs and have them come in and analyze your P&Ls, because I will tell you, from a guy that looks at P&Ls, there's such a thing as sitting on too much cash. So if it's not being used and you're paying interest, even though your interest might be low interest government loans, if you can pay off something and generate money to where you don't have that debt service, then that's extra income that stays in the coffers for the city and the town. So my thing is, I am against it. We can't keep taxing the tourists to death, because that's what we're going to do. And, everyone moans. You moan about it when you travel somewhere. People are going to pay the prices when they go, but it comes a point where they're just like, enough is enough, right? And we try to collect as much revenue as we can for you. We do. Hotels try to collect as much as we can for you. And we do. So does the meals. And, and it does contribute greatly to the coffers of the town. So I think where it is good. I don't think we need to mess with it right now. I think if you look at the revenue that's been generated over the last decade, you'll see that there's been a consistent increase all the way. Every year, there's always been an increase in your revenue from the lodging tax. So if you're getting the increase with what you've got, do you really need to increase it anymore? I mean, I understand prices have gone up, but then again, also, just like everything else, we've got to find a way to make the budget work with the revenue that you do collect. So, it's just like me. I'm a business, but, certain businesses within the town, you have to remember you're not paying water and sewer. Kind of, you're not getting billed for it. You're paying for it indirectly, but, at the end of the day, you're not. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that you're not paying the property taxes, collecting property taxes from everyone else, but you're not paying property taxes on all the property that you owned. If you did, then, I mean, so it's just kind of one of those things that, hey, let's keep it where it is. If we need to discuss it, how about you guys send out an official letter to all the establishments that it affects, and you have a sit down, open discussion, and give us your points. The hotel side give us their points, and we see where we can meet if that comes to be. But right now, mine and my colleagues all are on the point that we do not need to raise it. Where it is good. You've had consistent revenue growth over the last decade. With the way that it is, I don't think we need to mess with it. So that's my 2 cents for the day. Thank you guys for listening. All right.
Thank you, appreciate it. So there's nobody else that would like to speak towards that, correct? That's signed up.
No, I was representing the group.
All right, so those are the only people have signed up for to talk to council this evening. But we're going to move on with our agenda. Yeah.
I did sign a piece of paper back there.
That's what I was, yeah, I think he's here to speak. Huh? There may be another piece of paper because he.
Listen, did you want to come to? Please.
I won't take.
Oh, please, I'm sorry. There might be another paper out there, but it's.
I'm sure there is. It was out there.
Okay.
My name is Kirby Lambert. I'm at 295 Chapman Road.
Uh-huh.
I'm just calling to voice of concern about the traffic on Main Street and on Monroe Street. You have traffic that's trying to turn left onto other intersections. It starts anywhere from the time you come off number 11 all the way till it comes to the 4th section up here. When you got traffic turning left, you got vehicles going on the other side of their vehicles, passing on the right-hand side. They almost hit your vehicle the other day. That's paperclip. They almost hit it just the other day. That was one of the reasons.
No, they did. They came. They passed right around.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a concern. I actually was trying to cross the street the other day, and vehicle was stopped. 4 vehicles behind him was stopped. I had the right of way to go across the street, and the vehicle come all the way around me and would have hit me if I wouldn't have saw it. I believe that's a concern for both sides. I know that it's difficult at times to get down Main Street. I know at times it's difficult to get down Monroe Street. But if you can't wait, find another way around.
Mr. Wayne, can you give me that address again?
My address?
Or where the concerns are?
Oh, anywhere from the time you come off number 11 until it turns back up to the 4 lane at the top of the hill on Main Street.
So from 12th Street at Food
Oh,
City.
yeah. I mean, you got people, I've seen people trying to turn left on 4th Street, waiting on the light, or traffic to get by, and vehicles going down by the ABC store, passing them on that side right there. You see vehicles going up the hill on 4th Street. They're going on the right-hand side. If a vehicle's parked there, that's a different thing. But, regardless, you should still respect. If there's 2 vehicles going to make a left-hand turn, both of them should be able to make a left-hand turn at the same time. But if you got a vehicle going around them on the right-hand side, a lot of times you can't see them. The next thing you know, you have a wreck. And I have seen wrecks. I've saw 3 wrecks in the last 3 weeks in front of my store. So I feel like we're going to have a problem. If somebody gets hurt, then it comes back on the town. So there is a way to fix this address, but it needs to be fixed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I agree with that. And there was also some other wrecks recently in the last 3 weeks on Main Street for that same reason, passing around.
One last comment. I did go see Mr. Ash, and he told me this is where I need to come to.
Good.
He said, "What do you want me to do? Have my officer sit up there?" And I said, "No, sir. You've got enough on your plate right now." So thank you for addressing me come here. Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See, is there anybody else that wanted to come up to the podium this evening? So next on the agenda is a consideration of a resolution for Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT Transportation Alternatives Grant application for the Pepper's Ferry Road Sidewalk Gap Project. And we will hear from Planning Director Woods. Thank you all for coming.
All right.
They knew we were having it.
On the screen, you can see the area of the first project, which is, we've titled it the Pepper's Ferry Road Sidewalk Gap. This involves an area, this building is the Alco building, and basically from their last driveway out to Community Boulevard, right now there is no existing sidewalk. And the driveway entrances through that area wouldn't be passable for a wheelchair. This area is one of the issues that happens is there's a number of disabled individuals that live in Freedom Lane housing complex. And there's at least several that would like to access the recreation center and the other facilities at the meeting center. And I've seen them numerous times motoring in a personal mobility device in the traffic lane. And it's a very hazardous situation. So we've applied for funding through the Transportation Alternatives Program to construct that sidewalk. One of the things that this project would involve is there's a dedicated right turn lane into Community Boulevard, but we've got a lane there that basically disappears. And the proposal would be to eliminate that dedicated right turn lane so that we'd have room to build the sidewalk without having to acquire more right-of-way and build retaining walls along the hotel properties there at the corner. The resolution that you see before you is based on the template that VDOT provides. There's language in there that they want to see in each of these resolutions. Any questions about the project? Or
I think it's a great idea.
all right. Now,
What would be the town's responsibility as far as financial?
The responsibility is 20% of the construction cost. The estimated cost of this right now is about $650,000 for this particular project. Once the VDOT requires that we assign an inflation factor, which is a fairly stiff factor, which puts their official estimate at $1,080,000, I believe it is.
$1,008,000?
Yes.
What's the footage? How much sidewalk are we proposing, John? What's the length of it?
I believe that's about 800 feet, if I recall.
So it would come down from Alco.
It would connect Alco to Community Boulevard, which would make would finish that loop.
The sidewalks are going to stop right there at the hotel parking lot.
Well, they would basically, from up here at that at the main driveway into the Alco facility, it would be new sidewalk from that point all the way around to the corner of Community Boulevard. There would have to be some modification of the existing sidewalk that's there to make the connection.
So if someone wanted to go to the rec center, they'd still be in the.
No, they'd be able to use the new sidewalk from the existing sidewalk ends right here. I don't know if you can see at the very left-hand edge of that screen where my cursor is. That's where the existing sidewalk ends. And this would install new driveway aprons that are accessible and new sidewalk all the way down to connect to Community Boulevard. There'd be a crosswalk at the entrance to the hotels.
So Gary, the yellow section is the new, and then on the bottom right hand side of the screen, you can see the existing sidewalk. The concrete is kind of that light gray adjacent to the road.
Mr. Freeman, it carries on down through here.
It goes all the way down Community Boulevard, all the way to Lithia Road from there. But there's no connection from that little end point up to the Alcove property.
I remember bringing that up because there was a citizen he would always have to go around by Rite Aid and then down by, of course, all Long John Silver's and then go to the park.
Yeah, and they would have to get up literally in the road.
Oh, right.
I think he is a veteran as well.
There's lots of them that try to get to where they need to go, but I appreciate Mr. Woods taking this on and bringing it to council because it is very important.
Now, would you like to address this resolution first, or?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
So, council, there's a resolution that that goes along with this, and I would need a motion to accept that resolution. I so moved. Right, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. It's going to be a roll call vote. Councilwoman Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Patterson,
Give them that.
So that be able to move forward with that project, I think. Next is consideration of another resolution for Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT Transportation Alternatives Grant application for the Pepperidge Ferry Road Sidewalk ADA Upgrade Project. Again, Planning Director Mr. Woods will.
This project is a similar area along Pepperidge Ferry Road, but this involves the existing sidewalks. Now, unfortunately, none of the existing driveway aprons and even the ADA ramps fully meet the standard for accessibility. And some of those residents at Freedom Lane also have had issues trying to make it safely down to the Veterans Center here where they can get medical attention, or their pharmacy at Walgreens, and into any other shopping downtown, because those ramps and driveway aprons are such that it would flip their wheelchairs over if they were to try and navigate them. And so likewise, this way they'll ride out in the street. The Transportation Alternatives Program has been modified in this round. Previously, they would not fund spot repairs like this, but they have added the ability to retrofit and bring existing sidewalks that are in good condition otherwise up to ADA standards. And so at each of the corners and driveway aprons.
We can't, I don't think the project.
It is not. I've got the right screen here, but
You got notes or something on this one?
While they're looking, does everybody have a little bit of a grasp of what he's talking about for this next one?
So we're talking-
Yep.
There we go.
All right, so this is the Walgreens. This is the facility that the veterans can visit the doctor. Each of these ramps and driveways, some of which aren't even used, are not ADA compliant. When you get up to Hedgefield, there's a problem that because of the way the entrances is designed here, in order to prevent stormwater from the street from flowing down into the complex, they have raised that entrance. Well, unfortunately, that makes the ramps ineffective. So we're proposing bringing the sidewalk crossing back away from it so that we can we can deal with the stormwater without creating a sort of impossible grading process to make those ramps work.
Mr. Woods, is that there at Hedgefield? Is that actually town right away, or would we have to get permission from them?
We would have to get permission from them. I'm hoping that since we're both public agencies, that they would be amenable to this. The same issue is up at Freedom Lane. Also proposing adding some crosswalks. We have ramps to nowhere right now. It would basically create a crosswalk to go with those upgraded ramps and a place to land on the other side. It wouldn't complete the walk into the neighborhood, but at least it would provide if somebody is from this neighborhood wants to walk into town, it would give them a little bit safer way to get across to where the sidewalk is. So this is a similar area between the two projects. It would make the entire Peppers Ferry Road corridor from 11th Street up to the Community Boulevard ADA accessible, and it would complete all of that sidewalk so that those disabled individuals, both at Hedgefield and Freedom Lane, could safely navigate. The cost of this particular project, the cost estimate is comparable to the other. This one came in at $1,050,000 based on the inflated estimate that procedure that VDOT uses now.
Now, VDOT on the one the side, the crosswalk on like the left, is that what VDOT suggests or recommends?
Which, as far as
that one, yes, sir.
These, basically, they don't want to see anything that doesn't come to a logical terminus. And so by at least getting across the street and putting a terminus to that sidewalk, we've gotten them across to where they can walk into their neighborhood. Ideally, you'd like sidewalks in the neighborhood too, but we've got a lot of sidewalks that we'd need to build to make that happen. This would provide us, one of the long-range goals is to get a sidewalk along Cove Road for similar reasons.
I can understand that one because that's sort of like to a main,
Right,
road. But I'm not for sure about the second one to the left.
right. And there's a ramp there now. The presumption was at some point they had intended to continue that on across. There's probably some option to that. We need to at least provide the option to get across the street for future. That's basically what this is doing, is for the potential for future use.
What road is that?
Dead end road.
It's a dead end road. I just think that would sort of be.
Well, it's not exactly a dead end. There's
another road that cuts to the right.
Right. I think that's 19th Street.
That's the road that goes back around the Cobra.
Yes.
Yeah. I sort of have some questions about that one.
Is your concern safety or cost?
Well, no, I just didn't know the one on Cove. I believe people would benefit from using that more. I'm not so sure about that there. It's sort of like it's sort of just loops back around.
Well, some people walking down Cove might actually take that side street and, to walk and be off of the main road for a little bit. It's hard to say which one would be the busier.
The speed limit on Peppersburg Road right there is still 35.
Right now it is 35.
I mean, anywhere in town that we have crosswalks, nobody stops for them anyway, even if there's pedestrians in them. So
Now, one of the things that we have I think we're trying to schedule a work session shortly for our HSIP grant application. And what we're working on, it will again revisit this Peppers Ferry Road section where we're considering a road diet, which would take the 4 lanes that are there now and turn it into 2 lanes each way with a 2-way left turn and bike lanes, which will generally, that profile will tend to slow traffic down a little bit, not a lot, but it will get people closer to the speed limit. And it will address some of the issues of making that crossing, pedestrian crossing, safer, because there will be the potential to put an island, a refuge island in the middle where that 2-way left turn lane is. And basically it'll give us some opportunities to improve this a little more than what you see in this phase.
And my just concern is that one line there, the one crosswalk.
Mm-hmm.
no questions for Mr. Woods.
And this is a conceptual drawing, which will, when it gets engineered, all these things are going to be looked at again. But,
Can you just bring up that I do have just some concerns just in that one little section?
Sure.
And your concern is you don't think it's necessary.
Well, just because it's just
I understand. But I'm just saying,
right? Yes, ma'am. Just because it sort of loops around, and they may have good justification for it, and they may can explain that. So,
Just as soon as we don't do it, Holly, the people out there are going to say, "Well, you didn't make me crosswalk for my street."
Well, no, I understand that too.
Yeah.
It's like.
I think John brings up 2 good points. One of the items on the agenda tonight is to request that you all schedule a work session for September 11th to discuss the HSIP application. So there's actually 3 different grant applications going in for Peppers Ferry Road. And that third one, the HSIP, which is 100% funding if it's funding, would include this road diet. And you would see a pedestrian refuge island on the left side of that crosswalk, essentially, so that a car could still get in that lane, make the left to go around, but a person would only have to cross 2 lanes. They would have refuge, and then they would only have to cross 2. Whereas now, it's essentially 5-ish. That makes sense. So that'll make more sense when you see the HSIP road diet.
And just while we're on this, I know my concern before has been up at Walmart area with people trying to cross there in wheelchairs. I don't know maybe where that may be on the plan.
Well, the study that VDOT is doing now, the STARS study, is addressing 4th Street. And so they are.
Which is yet a fourth program from the three you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, this is a separate program. We're hoping to receive feedback from that sometime this fall, which will then guide funding requests for pedestrian safety along 4th Street.
But that's still on the radar, like coming from Sheets and.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I know there's a couple people trying to come from Sheets and then go down to a McDonald's. And
When we've addressed it, when we've sought funding for that area previously, the expense has been so high that we just haven't been able to get consideration. And they finally decided that the issues are too complicated to try and address piecemeal. So they want to complete the full study of 4th Street all the way from Main Street out to North Winds Apartments. And so they're looking at signalization, they're looking at intersection safety, they're looking at potential for a road diet along that section, or other ways to address the left turning vehicles, which we have a cluster of accidents that happen there between Virginia Avenue and Ridge Road. And that's from people stopping to make a left turn, somebody behind doesn't notice it, and you have a lot of rear end collisions and then angle collisions as people are actually making the turn. And so it's the last area that with a accident cluster that rises to the level of the showing up on the VDOT analysis that we have in town.
now, if we do the other three, Mr. Woods, does that put the money out where it would maybe be questionable, or?
You mean as if we apply for funding in one area, is it going to affect the other? Basically, these are different programs. The HSIP funding is completely separate pool of money, and as far as the transportation alternatives grants, which were this is the best project we have ready for funding today. We have to wait for the end of the study to apply again for funding out along 4th Street. So we're really not affecting future funding yet.
Thank you. Great presentation.
You're welcome.
If there's no more questions for Mr. Woods, would council consider to approve the resolution? I will need a motion.
I move that we approve this resolution to make the ramps and the driveways on Pepys Ferry Road ADA retrofitted and up to standards.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, is there any discussion?
I do just want to double check. We will, before we could just do it, we would have to get permission from the housing authority. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you, Mr. Woods.
Any other questions? All right, again, roll call vote. Councilman Gilman?
Patterson, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Johnson, aye.
All right, that motion passes. Moving forward, there's to consider the appointment of a member to the Willowbrook Jackson Umberger Homestead Museum Advisory Board to fill the expired term of Ms. Jean Lester. The term expired July 31st, 2023. I have any motions?
That's so many. Did you say motion or question?
Motion. Do you have a name of that motion?
My iPad Siri is on in a while, so excuse me.
So at this point, we have 2 applications. We have Mrs. Spraker and Mr. Trevilian. I need a name to go with your motion.
A name
Yeah, whoever
to go
you want
with
to
the
take that
motion.
seat.
Mr. James Sparky.
And so we have a motion to fill that 1 seat. We have a second. Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Right, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye as well. Any opposed? Hearing none. That motion passes. So congratulations to Mr. Spraker for filling that seat. And next on the agenda is to consider town council make a board appointment to the Willowbrook Jackson Umbrella Homestead Museum Advisory Board. I will need a motion. I have a motion to,
For an additional member.
for an additional member, that's right. And that would be Ms. Trevilian.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. Any opposed? That motion passes. Congratulations to Ms. Trevilian. And I know both of these people will just serve that board very well. Very knowledgeable and very passionate and volunteerism. And I think they're both going to be great on that board.
I've heard great things about both of them. So I appreciate all that you do. You and Mr. Spraker, I've heard that you all do an outstanding job. So thank you.
All right, so next on the agenda is consideration of a request from Go Rail to support a group letter to oppose increasing the weight limit for heavy trucks. And we'll have a presentation by Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. We do occasionally, I think throughout the year, we do occasionally get requests like this, and I believe we have received a few of these from Go Rail in the past. Go Rail is a nationwide advocacy group that supports the increased utilization of rail networks to support, and they've asked us to oppose House HR. It's a House bill essentially, HR meaning House of Representatives. So HR 3372, which proposes currently to raise the federal weight limit of heavy trucks from 80,000 pounds to 91,000 pounds. The request cites the negative impact of high costs of the increased weight on local infrastructure such as roads and bridges. And I am in agreement that should the weight increase go through, it would allow this for 10 years. And I personally don't think that the Federal Highway Administration, I don't know that they've looked at the impacts on local roads, bridges, and other infrastructure. So it would be my belief that the council would want to support such a bill, but that is entirely up to you. I'm sorry, not support a bill, support opposition to the bill. They did provide a copy of the letter that would be sent under the mayor's signature, and that is provided in your packet. Happy to read it if you'd like, but I should have it.
All right, so I would like to have a consideration by the town council to approve participating in the group letter. How about a motion?
So moved.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? I hear none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. Any opposed? So that motion carried. Next on the agenda is consideration by town council to reschedule or cancel the October 10th, 2023 town council meeting due to a conflict with the Virginia Municipal League Conference. Again, Mr. Freeman will fill us in on that, please.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. As you all know, the Virginia Municipal League Conference this year is on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday That'd be October 8th, 9th, and 10th, I do believe. Mayor Taylor, Ms. Johnson, and I will all be attending that conference and unavailable on Monday the 9th. Now, you have a range of options here. You could choose to carry on with the meeting on that Monday night without us. You could reschedule it, or you could also just cancel it altogether. Now, one complicating factor here I'd like to bring up is that one of the things that we still have to get done with the one of the bonds that we're pursuing, the USDA bond, is have a public hearing that has a very specific set of criteria for how that must be advertised, when the public hearing must be held relative to the advertisement. There's some dates that say, Sherry, you may have those in front of you. I'm not sure. I'll put you on the spot, but something like, thank you, Ms. It turns out that the Wednesday, the 11th, is about the only date that we would have available to meet that public hearing requirement. Otherwise, we would have to ask you all to set a special public hearing date, a special meeting of the council, just to accommodate the public hearing for the bond. So I would suggest that we cancel the meeting and then let us come back to you at the next meeting with possibly scheduling a special meeting on the 11th. We've asked bond counsel for a recommendation on that, and we did not hear back from them before meeting time this evening. So my recommendation would be to cancel the meeting on the 9th, and then when we come back to you at the next meeting, we'll ask you potentially to reschedule for the 11th, Wednesday the 11th.
I think we need some correction as to that Monday night is a holiday, so
That's
it would have been.
I'm sorry.
So we would,
It would automatically go to the Tuesday, but then we'll be at VML.
On that Tuesday. Just for the record.
Okay,
that would
my
be-
apologies.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So let me back up. What we would ask you to do is cancel that meeting altogether. It would default to the Tuesday by your code, but we're asking you to cancel it for that Tuesday, and then we will probably be asking you to reschedule it for Wednesday the 11th. And it could be that since that's such an awkward time, the only agenda item is the public hearing for the bond.
Mr. Freeman, could we go ahead and schedule it now, or we cannot do that?
You could, but if the bond counsel gets back to us tomorrow morning and says, no, that won't work, or something like that, then we'd prefer to hear back from them and make sure that satisfies the public hearing requirements before we do it.
I think canceling, I think that would be fine.
All right. Motion is to
Cancel the October 9th town council meeting, yes, ma'am. Unless others want to have it.
the Tuesday night council.
Technically, you could have it on, it would automatically go to Tuesday because Monday is a holiday. Thank you for correcting me on that. You could technically have it on the Tuesday, and then we could still have a special one on Wednesday for the public hearing. That's
We have
also.
a motion.
Yes, sorry.
Cancel
I'm sorry.
Tuesday night.
Shoot, I'm sorry.
October.
I apologize, but whatever we need to do to make it, I would like everybody to hear.
I think just
We have a
cancel it
motion. Do we
tonight
have
is
a
the best course of action.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion?
Second.
Or have second? So,
Yes. But, and I do apologize. I mean,
so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, this again will be a roll call vote. Councilwoman Johnson?
Johnson, aye. Atkins, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Peterson, aye.
That motion passes.
Thank you
On
all.
the agenda to schedule a work session for 4 p.m. on September 11, 2023 to discuss Highway Safety Improvement Program, HSIP application regarding traffic calming on Peppers Ferry Road and Monroe Street. And we will hear from Mr. Freeman again.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. I think Mr. Woods did a pretty good job of explaining what that is all about. We would recommend that the council take a little deeper dive on that, since it is a little more involved than just the sidewalks. And we'd recommend that you schedule that work session for 4 p.m. on September 11th.
Be a long thing, if we start at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Did I say 4 a.m.?
No, you said like, I'm talking about the breakfast thing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
From 5:30 to 8. All right, so does anybody have any questions, Mr. Freeman? All right, so I would need a motion to consider the schedule of the work session at 4 p.m. on September 11th. Need a motion?
I so moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye as well, and opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Next on the agenda is consideration of allocating funds for the Mountain Empire Airport runway painting project. And again, Mr. Freeman, if you'll fill us in on it, please.
Thank you. As I reported at the last meeting, the town has received a request from Mountain Empire Airport for restriping of the runway and taxiway. This request was a result of a recent Virginia Department of Aviation inspection that noted a deficiency in the paint markings. The state is paying for 80% of the costs, or $21,128, and the remaining 20% is we're being asked to split the remaining 20% among the 4 member localities. Those are Smith County, Wythe County, Town of Wytheville, and Town of Marion. The 4-way split of our 20% share would be $1,320.50. It is anticipated that all the member localities will participate in this project, and I recommend that the Town of Wytheville honor the request as well. If you choose, what we would ask the council to do is you could either we're not really asking you to amend and appropriate that money. Mr. Stevens usually does those at the end of the year, but if you'll simply approve the expenditure, we'll make it happen, and then it'll be part of your budget amendments at the end.
So do we have a motion to consider the town council to allocate the funds,
Appropriation is what we need.
appropriation funds as presented?
I move that we appropriate these funds as presented.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Freeman, I just want to double check. The cost would be split between the 4, correct?
Correct. So unfortunately, I don't have the total cost here. 80% of the cost is 21.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
I just wanna
Each
make
member
sure.
locality would pay the $1,320.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And it is my understanding that that was a federal, the federal made them paint it, just wasn't something that.
Yeah, it was actually the Virginia Department of Aviation inspection.
And any other questions or concerns? So we need a motion?
We got it.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, we probably did.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second, and we have discussion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, it's going to be a roll call vote. Councilman Gilman,
Gilman, aye.
Addison, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Johnson, aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Anything under new business? We have, recommend and regulatory reports. Staff report, Mr. Freeman.
Just a few items here, Mayor Taylor. VDOT has authorized the bid advertisement for Heritage Walk Phase 3. That is also a transportation alternatives grant program that is an 80-20 split that has been in the works for probably 3 or 4 years. The bids will be opened on September 28th at 2 p.m. here in the town council, in the municipal building. After some minor renovations, the Cat Shelter has reopened. We're scheduled to meet with some of our volunteer partners this week to discuss how our relationship and the operations of the facility can be improved moving forward. So I look forward to that discussion. Those volunteers. Parks and Recreation has taken possession of a new used 15-passenger van and has already put it into service. Director Sherris and his staff have extended their thanks and appreciation to the council for helping make that happen through the budget process last year. The 2 old buses have been decommissioned, and we are actually just holding those for a little while to see if there's any repurposing that could happen with those. If we don't find a use for them soon, we will surplus them. But they've already taken that out, and they said that it was a much different experience for their program participants. I'll be meeting with a group tomorrow at 5 p.m. at the Open Door Cafe to continue the discussion on homelessness and their efforts to establish a warming shelter in Wytheville. Looking forward to a robust discussion there. Also, just want to mention that the Howler Gibney Rock House Museum will have a grand reopening and 200th birthday celebration on Wednesday, September 13th at 10 a.m. Museum will offer free tours until 1 p.m. This historic landmark was built in 1823 and was the home of Dr. John Haller, Wytheville's first resident physician, and became Wytheville's first museum in 1972. So certainly welcome all who can to attend. And that's all I have, Mayor Taylor.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda, upcoming meetings. Town Clerk Sherry Corbin, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The municipal offices will be closed and all services curtailed on Monday, September 4th in observance of the Labor Day holiday. And the next council work session will be held at 4 p.m. on Monday, September 11th, prior to the regularly scheduled town council meeting at 5 p.m. here in the council chambers.
So moving on to other business, and here we have discussion regarding the lodging tax. This is discussion and dialogue amongst ourselves, and there will be no voting because we have to have a public hearing before we do any voting on it. So it's open to the floor. I think we had some interested parties that wanted to consider and have some dialogue about increasing the lodging tax. Because we have any
Ron, how am I going to get this back?
dialogue.
You have your set.
So most of what we'll talk about today is I'm just going back to the slides that we used back during our many discussions on the budget to kind of refresh you on the importance of the lodging tax, how it fits into the revenue stream puzzle, I'll say, of the town of Wytheville, and kind of go from there. I think that will kind of set the stage for your discussion. First thing I want to point out again is that these are the audited figures from 2011 to 2022 that show how the town of Wytheville spends its money. I think this is a good way to demonstrate just on a basis, the ratio of the ratio of various activities that the town undertakes each year and how those have changed over the last 10 years. By and large, water and sewer, which are in their own funds, are the greatest expenditure historically. Public safety is our number 2 expenditure by function, and public works is our number 3. It used to traditionally was a number 2, but in recent investments in public safety have kind of flip-flopped those. I won't go through all this because you all have heard it ad nauseum. Water and sewer funds projected at $6,405,000. Lodging tax does not fund these projects. The revenues from this are primarily from user fees. Public works, as we mentioned, is about 20% of the overall budget. As you all know, a good bit of that money, about $3 million, probably more like 3.6, 3.7 this year, will come from DDOT alone. Public safety is our number 2 expenditure by function. That did take quite a serious increase in the 2020-21 fiscal year. That got back down to $5.2 million last year. I don't have all the expenditure reports in for the current or the fiscal year we just wrapped up, but I suspect it's in that 5.2, 5.3 range. But that's where you see the largest increase in expenditures. We've gone over all that many times. These are, as you all recall, these were just areas in which the town's liabilities were increasing very rapidly. We wanted to point out to you how and why these expenses got to where they are today. General property tax accounts for about $2 million annually at the current rate and current real estate assessment. The town of Wytheville has about $1 billion in real estate, and extrapolating that out through the tax rate, we're expecting about $2 million in real estate tax. The other taxes below that under general property taxes bring in a significantly smaller share. Property taxes is about 78% of what we capture as local taxes, although I'd argue that meals and lodging should be probably in there as well. These are other local taxes. Excuse me, those were all property taxes. So general property taxes. Meals tax is projected to bring in about $4 million in the next fiscal year. That constitutes about 18% of the town's general fund budget. Lodging tax at the current rate is projected to bring in $1,954,000. I think we finished slightly above that number in the past year, but I don't have all the financials on that just yet. Third in that category is B-Poll, and you can kind of move down the line to see where we get our money from. A little closer look at meals tax historically. Those numbers were surprisingly trending down from 18, 19, and 20, and then hit a very low mark in 21 and 22 due to COVID. Those numbers have rebounded significantly for a number of reasons. The return of the casual traveler, not just the as-needed business traveler. I think inflationary forces that are driving up costs for restaurateurs is driving a good bit of that as well. But certainly people are getting, and there was a lot of pent-up demand that sort of came back, and that rebounded quite well. Now lodging tax, which is sort of the topic of the hour. Again, 18, 19, 20, that was trending down. We had a big fall off in 21 and 22 as a result of COVID, but those numbers, as Mr. Patel brought up earlier, have rebounded very nicely. A lot of this, again, is pent-up demand for leisure travel. A lot of this is also the inflationary forces that impact us, frankly, in a positive way when it comes to collecting taxes on gross receipts. Just a quick review of the tax rates in the area. We selected these communities based on their situation along the 81 and 77 corridor. Certainly, we could have populated this map with probably another 20 stars in that region. But I think these are peer or a little bit larger communities, or peer or a little bit smaller communities, but nothing that's really out of scale here. Too bad. That's a slide you hadn't seen until you got your packet. I'll go back to lodging. I just want to point out a couple more things before you get into the discussion. As we mentioned earlier, a good bit of the town's revenue, $3.9 million, comes in the form of categorical aid. These are grants from the state for very narrowly defined purposes. By and large, the town is not getting a lot of revenue from real estate or personal property. We're getting a lot of revenue from meals. We're getting a lot of revenue from the state. We're getting a lot of revenue from lodging, and then a bunch of other much smaller pools of money. So I'll just go back here, and then I'll just be here to answer questions as you need.
Anybody want to start some dialogue? We have had a request to have this session talk about this.
Probably it would be beneficial if I would have shown you projected use of reserves. A lot of this is capital. We primarily brought out and highlighted here the capital and one-time use of reserves. We did show a total operating deficit of $363,000, and the remainder of the use of reserves was for strategic capital spending. A lot of these are safety related or capital improvements to protect assets. So I think that's important to understand that as it stands, the town is projecting a operating deficit and a deficit as far as capital and one-time expenses. And we've been in this pattern for probably 5 years. Now, we typically did finish the last year much better than projected. I think I pointed out to you all in a previous meeting that vacancy savings was a huge factor in us making budget. But I think, as we pointed out before, it's a good way to save money. It's also a good way to exhaust your staff, and it's not something that is sustainable. But I thought we better point that out.
Appreciate that. Anything from council?
I'm sorry.
So is there anything from council? Anybody have any dialogue or any concerns or questions? Or seems when we're here to talk about yay or nay, whether or not council is even as a whole wants to go forward with increasing this tax. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and go with. I was looking at these yellow lines that they were doing, and then what Mr. Patel was talking about is that increased very nicely over the years. And you know, we can increase it again, but that's not going to. It's going to help a little bit with some of the hole in the budget, but then what are we going to lose from doing that? I don't know. I don't know if this. You know, this is we're really trying really hard to be a destination town. I don't think we've gotten there yet, so we still have a lot of one-night stands, whatever. But so those people might get frustrated. They might not. They might just pay whatever. Looks like by this map that we're sitting in a nice place as far as regionally. And that's just my opinion.
You said the map, the transit occupancy map. Right. Bristol's currently at 13%.
I know, but Bristol's a.
I'll recheck that. I did pull these from their codes if I've got that wrong.
They're currently at 13%.
Bristol's about $100 million in debt too.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying they're at 13%.
Sure.
A lot of those that are higher, some of them not. I wouldn't say of us are towns versus cities and bigger municipalities. Big one in Blacksburg, and they're only at 7%. So we're kind of all over the board there, but.
And we're currently at 8. And if we were to go the one that was recommended by Davenport, that would take it to 9. Am I correct?
Yes. And 1 cent would net about $240,000 in new revenue based on gross receipts for the previous year.
It would only be $240,000.
Based on the 21-22 audited actuals on the. Now, I don't know what the sales volume is for the last year, but that's about right.
Can you get me the volume for the last year? Maybe send it to me later.
Sure.
Thank you. And then maybe we can have further discussion after we get the information.
What was the number you were thinking it was, Ms. Johnson?
Huh?
Was there a number that you thought it was?
I believe it may be more than $240,000. So I would like to see it before I comment on it. I don't want to just put a number out there and be wrong.
Sure.
So I don't want to get crucified over that.
Mr. Freeman, I do want to just double check, and the Davenport did suggest to raise it by 1 cent just by 2025.
Correct.
I think they requested that we could do all the raises for property, meals, and lodging, all by 2025.
Correct.
So, in all fairness, I'm looking at the fairness here for the citizens, people that buy meals. In all fairness,
Well, I mean, I understand the fairness part, but I look at, I look at my own family. We're no different from some other families there, but I don't know how often we go out to eat. But other than that, that's the only tax on the citizens would incur is if they choose to go out to eat. And that's, some people go out to eat every night. Some people don't.
Just a quick clarification here. This is an audited I'm sorry, that was a projected number, but I know we hit that. I'm pretty certain we hit that 1,953,000 number, the far right column. If you divide that by 8 pennies, each penny would be $244,137.
All right, so does anybody have any more things they want to share? If not, seeing as we're going to be talking about this again, we can move on to closed session, but it's really up to what y'all want to, anybody wants to have any more dialogue.
So do you all want us to bring this back? Do you want us, what kind of direction can you give to the staff on this? If you want to consider raising it, you will have to advertise a public hearing. And so we need direction, yes or no, on that. No at this time, yes at this time, bring it back for consideration later.
I mean, we're not voting, we're just having dialogue, but, hearing a whole lot. Let's bring it back. I personally don't want to bring it back, so that's.
why do you not want to bring it back? Personally,
Well, for some of the reasons that were pointed out to us, that we're getting good increases in our lodging tax. And, we might need that bullet, in another year or two to be able to increase that if we're in a worse place than we are now. I don't know. I don't, and I can't say because I don't know how many people go out to eat, but I don't feel like we did a overcoming thing to our citizens by increasing the food tax, but obviously some people are affected by it, and everybody in this room is. But it's not a daily thing. It's more of a gentle raise that we did. That's just where I stand.
I think with the recent, where the county raised taxes and reassessments, I think they should have waited to give people time to recover from the former reassessments that were done. And some of those were extremely high for people. And we didn't allow them time to recover. And according to the study, we had till 2025. 2025, we had to 2025.
Well, and that, I'm kind of backtracking there on us, but we're here to talk about the lodging tax, and that's all that you're putting out there for us is what you are using to sustain it.
Mr. Patel offered a meeting, so would you all like to meet with Mr. Patel and hear what they further have to say?
Really, there was only one. He was the only one who really actually spoke against the lodging.
But as he said, three of them signed up. He said he was speaking for all of them.
They all had a chance to speak to as well.
So you have two people chiming in here. We need some other people to chime in whether or not we're going to do this again.
Well, Candace has asked for additional information, correct?
Excuse me?
You asked for additional information,
I
is that
did.
correct? Then let's get the additional information next meeting, and then we'll proceed if we want to do a public hearing.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I should be able to get that for you in the morning.
So next on the agenda, seems that we can go voting on that. Council member time. That's probably the only one out, but Mr. Gilman, anything council member time?
No, I have anything.
Vice Mayor?
Not at this time, but I reserve the right to come back.
I do not have anything either. Councilwoman Atkins?
I did have a citizen's complaint. If you're coming by, like with the Moose Lodge, there's a stop sign there, and then you're coming by Dr. Taylor's veterinarian's office. Apparently, there at that stop sign, when you're looking back to see if anybody's coming past Dr. Taylor's office, apparently it's a very bad situation. I've not been able to ride by there to look, but he was just wondering if maybe some brush could be trimmed back and things like that. And still have the complaint, and like I said, it's not myself, but the speeding on Fairview Road, it does not appear to look like it's getting any better. Didn't know what means we could take for that. Didn't know if we could put the car out there, to give your speed, but it doesn't appear to be getting any better, and just didn't know what could be done and looked into.
Okay.
And that's it.
Councilwoman Johnson?
I have nothing at this time, but I reserve the right to come back.
We're about done with council. Anybody want to come back? It's just time to come back.
We can always come back after closed session, though, right?
Yes, we can.
I mean, I
You
wasn't
have
for
to.
sure.
All right, so council feels need to go into closed session at this point to close meeting pursuant to 2.2-3711A .1 to discuss the town attorney position. Also, closed session meeting pursuant to 2.2-3711A-31 discussion regarding the acquisition, disposition of property used for public purpose. Next is a closed meeting pursuant to 2.2-3711A1 to discuss the performance and salaries of appointed employees. All of these we can do at one time. It requires a motion and a vote. So do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion second. Is there any further discussion? Hear none. All in favor of going into closed session, signify by saying aye. If no, any opposed? That motion passes. Does anybody need a
2 minutes.
2-minute break? I will meet in the back room in
Thank you.
2 minutes. You all ready? Okay. It is now necessary to reconvene into open session by stating that the town council is now in open session. A motion is necessary to certify that only matters lawfully convening the open session were discussed. Need a motion?
So moved.
On the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion second. Is there any discussion? I'd be a roll call vote. Mr. Gilman?
Aye.
Patterson, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Johnson,
So we are now in open session. Now, we were people were in limbo about, they had any council member time, but other than that, I think we got to the bottom of the agenda. Does anybody have any council member time?
No, I don't.
Going once, going twice? All right. We are good.